I love you both, but
And the only thing, I'm sure Susan would like to, somebody mentioned back there that I was demoted. I looked at it as a promotion. The assembly. Okay, I wanted to follow up with Chief Louder. As you know, there's always supervisor's time, and I thought, well, we'll make it short and sweet. You don't have to hear me at the end of the meeting. I do want to acknowledge that Supervisor Federal Glover is here in the back. There he is. Thank you for coming. I've been out, I know that Daryl's been to a lot of your city council meetings and you've heard him. And in my district, I've been accompanying him because I think it's so important to talk about why some of the personal things. Daryl was mentioning about fire response. Until this whole campaign started, I didn't know, and I'm going to venture to say that a lot of you may not have known, that when a fire company is called out, 4 other fire companies have to be called out. That's national standards. It's not a policy that we just implemented because we felt like it. It's national standards and it's for safety. And what that means is if this parcel tax doesn't pass, instead of the 28 companies and houses that we have out there now that you know and recognize in your communities, between 7 and 10 of those are going to close down. That's just the fact. And so even if you aren't impacted by a fire in your neighborhood, the closest fire company to your, and I'm going to talk mostly about residences, but I know we all have businesses, is going to be called out to supplement that emergency somewhere else. So to me it's a visual. I mean, they're not going to be there, and that's why those response times are going to go up. A lot of the concerns and comments that have been directed to the fire board have been, why aren't you looking at a different service model? There's a high percentage of medical emergencies that our firefighters respond to. And why don't you just let ambulances go and do that? Well, for one thing, we don't have the capacity in our county and in our service district to have more ambulances. A lot of times, just because you see an ambulance on the street, I know I have in the past been guilty of thinking, well, there's an ambulance here, so whenever somebody else calls for an ambulance, there's an ambulance there. Well, as Chief Louder has mentioned on a number of occasions, it's not unusual that if an ambulance call comes in one area, the closest ambulance is almost 20 to 30 minutes away, or 30 miles, I should say. I'm sure they can get there faster than 20 to 30 minutes. But it's not that they're just down the street or across town. They're somewhere else. Plus, there's all those costs that are attendant to an ambulance call as opposed to a firefighter call. One of the concerns has been about insurance rates potentially going up, and as I'm going around and about, I've been talking this same spiel, so to speak, and then insurance people come up to me afterwards. Well, I'm not so sure that's the case. Are you really, I'm not an insurance salesman. I don't know. But what I do know and what I've heard is that insurance standards look at your closest either fire hydrant or fire station. And so when they start looking, should we not have these units available, insurance rates are going to go up. We've seen it happen in East County. We have East County mayors here who can attest to that fact. And I submit to you and to your constituents that it's less expensive to pay $75 in property taxes than having to pay that much more. We have an instance out in East County where they went up $400, not a month, pardon me, not a year, a month. So $4,800 additionally for that. I've seen some letters to the editor where the criticism is that our taxes keep going up and up and up. Yes, you all are in the same position where we've had to impose fees. We're talking about ad valorem. And I venture to say that the majority of us have seen our ad valorem taxes go down. And so I was at Pleasant Hill Rotary today and explaining the same thing, that your taxes in the ad valorem category have gone down so much more than paying the $75. So I submit to you that that is very inexpensive insurance. As the chief mentioned, we are looking at continuing costs of how to contain or reduce costs. One thing I did want to add on to what the chief said, actually in Contra Costa County, we're a 1937 Act county. I know the majority of the PERS entities, but our firefighters, in paying that subvention, have actually been paying more towards their retirement costs than even the governor's plan currently on the table is. That's a split of 50-50. We are continuing to be in negotiations with our firefighters that they will continue to pay that 9% that they're currently paying of the normal cost. So we actually, I think, and my colleagues think, have been much more proactive and much more, well, working on it sooner on pension reform. As you've heard me talk and federal and others, as we've gone to various mayors conferences, we've been addressing the issue of pension costs for this last several years, especially as it relates to public safety. And one of my two final points, you know, if this measure either does or does not pass in November, the morning after, we are still going to be dealing with pension issues. This doesn't address this. This isn't meant to pay pension issues. This is meant to be a maintenance of services. It's not an expansion. It's just to keep those 28 companies in place. And my fear, and a lot of us, our fear is with the increase in response time, there's going to be a much more dramatic potential for loss of life and or property. And I'm willing to pay $75 as an insurance against that to make sure we can get through this for the next 7 years. One of the key points, and I know a lot of you have also put in different kind of sales tax measures, is we usually exempt seniors because we know that in that case it's more likely to get it, at least their votes. We're not exempting seniors in this measure. And the reason is that a lot of seniors utilize these services for those medical calls. And we, as the fire board, felt that it was important that everyone should have to pay a fair share towards this. So that's the end of my fire spiel. I'm happy to answer questions too, but let me just take the rest of the few minutes here to talk about what